Welcome back to our channel. Today, we are traveling back thousands of years to the very dawn of human history. We are exploring the life of a man who changed the world forever through science, faith, and innovation. He was a prophet, a scientist, and the first true teacher of mankind. Join us as we begin the epic journey of Prophet Idrees. The story begins centuries after the first man, Adam, walked the earth. As humanity spread across the globe, a great divide began to grow. On one side were the righteous followers of the early teachings, but on the other side, darkness was taking over. In the lands of ancient Mesopotamia, the descendants of Cain had fallen into a life of lawlessness, corruption, and the worship of idols. It was during this era of spiritual crisis that a man named Akhnuk was born in the legendary city of Babylon. History would remember him by his title, Idrees. This name comes from the word dar, which means to teach or to study. He was given this name because of his incredible dedication to the divine scriptures and his tireless mission to educate the human race. Before the time of Idrees, human life was primitive. People struggled to survive against the elements, often wearing raw animal skins to stay warm. But the Creator granted Idrees wisdom that no human had ever possessed before. He became the father of many things we take for granted today. Idrees was the very first person to invent the needle and the art of tailoring. He taught the people how to weave fabrics and how to stitch clothes together. It is recorded in history that Idrees was a man of deep meditation. Every single time he pushed his needle through the cloth, he would quietly glorify God. His work was not just a job, it was a form of prayer. Perhaps his greatest legacy is the pen. Before Idrees' knowledge was only passed down by word of mouth, and much of it was lost or forgotten. He was the first human to ever use a pen to record history and divine laws. He laid the foundation of literacy, teaching his people how to write so that wisdom could be preserved for thousands of years. As trade began to grow between tribes, so did greed. People would often cheat one another. Idrees introduced the system of weights and measures. He taught the concept of mathematics and balance, ensuring that every transaction was fair and just. He was the first to show that a society cannot survive without honesty in the marketplace. Idrees stood in the crowded squares of Babylon, calling out to the people to leave their idols and return to the worship of the one true God. He warned them that their lifestyle of excess and cruelty would lead to their downfall. However, the powerful leaders of Babylon mocked him. They preferred their lawless ways over the disciplined life of a believer. They saw his inventions and his wisdom, but chose to remain in the dark, realizing that his mission in Babylon had reached its limit. Idrees received a divine command to lead his followers to a new land. He gathered the small group of believers and announced the Great Migration. Some were afraid to leave the fertile lands of Iraq, asking where they would find water and food. Idrees replied with unshakable faith, telling them that if they left for the sake of the truth, a better path would be opened for them. They traveled through harsh deserts and vast wilderness until they reached the banks of the majestic river Nile in Egypt. When Idrees looked upon the beauty of the Nile, he praised the Creator. He knew that this land would become the new cradle of wisdom, where he would build a society based on science, law, and faith. Upon settling in Egypt, Idrees did not just build a shelter. He designed a civilization. He is credited with being the first person to teach the world civil policy and urban planning. He gathered his students and taught them the principles of how to organize a society. Under his guidance, his followers spread across the earth, establishing approximately 200 cities. The smallest of these was a city called Ruha. Each city was built according to specific geographical plans and laws that Idrees had designed. He taught them where to place markets, how to build roads, and how to create residential areas that allowed for privacy and health. This was the first time in human history that the world saw organized urban living on such a massive scale. The wisdom given to Idrees was not limited to the earth. It reached the heavens. He was the first human to be granted the knowledge of astronomy and astrology. He studied the movements of the planets and the cycles of the stars. He taught his people that the universe was not a chaotic place, but a perfectly timed machine created by a master designer. He used the stars to help people navigate during their travels and to understand the changing of the seasons for farming. Along with this, he deepened the study of arithmetic and geometry. He showed that numbers were a language through which one could understand the physical world. For this reason, many historians consider him the father of ancient sciences. Idrees knew that for a civilization to last, it needed a fair social structure. He divided society into 3 distinct groups based on their responsibilities. The scholars. These were the teachers and spiritual guides. Idrees placed them at the highest level because they were responsible for the moral health of the people. The leaders. These were the kings and administrators responsible for law, order, and the protection of the state. The citizens. The farmers, builders, and traders who kept the economy moving. He emphasized that these ranks were not about being better than others, but about the weight of one's responsibility. He taught that a leader is a servant to the people and that a scholar is a light for the nation. As the civilization of Idrees grew in Egypt and beyond, the shadow of the lawless tribes of Babylon still loomed. The followers of Cain continued to spread violence and idol worship. To protect the innocent and uphold the truth, Idrees became the first prophet to lead a divine struggle or jihad. He used his knowledge of craftsmanship to design the first sets of armor and weapons for defense. He led a disciplined force against the oppressors, not for land or gold, but to establish peace and the worship of the one Creator. His victory was a turning point, proving that truth and organized wisdom would always prevail over chaos and ignorance. Idrees was known for his short but powerful sayings that people would carve into their city walls. He would say, "The greatest joy is found in the safety of one's faith, and the wisdom of life is to guard the soul against the greed of the world." He spent his days teaching and his nights in deep prayer. It is said that his spiritual rank grew so high that the angels of the heavens became his companions. They were amazed by the amount of good deeds he sent up to the heavens every single day, more than any other person on earth at that time. Prophet Idrees had built an empire of knowledge and peace, but his most mysterious chapter was yet to come. How did he form a friendship with the angel of death? And how did he enter the gates of paradise while still being a man of this world? We will reveal the breathtaking conclusion in the final part of this series. As the years passed, the spiritual power of Idrees reached a level that no human had ever achieved before. It is recorded that every single day, the weight of his good deeds was equal to the deeds of all the rest of humanity combined. His constant remembrance of the Creator made him a beloved figure not just on earth, but among the angels. Among these celestial beings was the angel of death, Israel. Because of the incredible piety of Idrees, the angel of death requested permission from God to visit him in human form. A deep friendship formed between the prophet and the angel. They spent time together in conversation, and it was during these moments that Idrees expressed a profound wish. He wanted to understand the realities of the afterlife, not out of fear, but out of a desire for complete knowledge. Idrees made a request that shook the heavens. He asked his friend, the angel of death, to take his soul, let him experience the taste of death, and then return it to his body. This was a request never made before. With divine permission, the angel of death fulfilled his wish. For a brief moment, Idrees left the world of the living and experienced the transition of the soul. When he was brought back to life, he was asked why he wanted to experience such pain. He replied, "So that I may increase my preparation for the final meeting with my Creator, and so that I may have more compassion for the souls of humanity." His curiosity for the divine truth did not stop there. Idrees then requested to see the 2 final destinations of mankind, the fires of hell and the gardens of paradise. Accompanied by the angel, he was shown the terrifying reality of hell, which only served to increase his devotion. But when the gates of paradise were opened for him, he was overwhelmed by a beauty that no eye has ever seen and no mind can truly imagine. He walked through the gardens, tasted the fruits of the heavenly trees, and breathed the air of eternal peace. When the time came for him to leave, Idrees remembered a divine promise that every soul shall taste death, and that those who enter paradise shall not be forced to leave. Having already tasted death and having now entered the gates of the garden, he requested to remain in the presence of the divine. The scriptures tell us that God accepted his plea because of his unmatched sincerity. Instead of returning to the dust of the earth, Idrees was elevated to a high station in the heavens. In the famous journey of the night ascent, thousands of years later, the Prophet Muhammad met Idris in the fourth heaven. There Idris greeted him as a righteous brother and a righteous prophet. This confirms the high rank he holds in the celestial hierarchy, a man who was raised to a place of honor while still possessing his soul and spirit in a way that defies human logic. Prophet Idris left behind a world that was no longer primitive. Because of him, humans knew how to write, how to sew, how to build organized cities, and how to look at the stars to find their way home. He taught that science and faith are not enemies, but two wings of the same bird. Though he was taken from the earth, his words remained carved in the hearts of his students. The greatest wisdom is to be content with what is lawful, and the greatest success is to leave the world better than you found it. The story of Prophet Idrees reminds us that knowledge is a sacred gift, from the first stroke of a pen to the grand design of the stars. His legacy lives on in every word we write and every city we build. Thank you for joining us on this. If you found this series valuable, please hit the like button and share it with those who love history and wisdom. Subscribe for more epic stories from the lives of the prophets. Until next time.